Hello everyone. Today we have another episode of Basic Training. I know it's been a while since we had a training session, but today we're going to be focusing on the core and fundamentals of deck building in universes. Now, every deck is different. Not every deck is going to be the same, and not even every version of a character is going to be the same. But this is going to be a good baseline or blueprint idea for deck building, and I'm going to go over a couple of different things regarding how many attacks to play in a certain hand size and things like that. So, the first question is, how do we build a deck? Well, first we need to pick our character. And for this, I chose to build Mikasa Ackerman Hizuru's Hope. I did this for a few different reasons. One, she's got two very simple abilities. Enhance, reveal one weapon card, this attack gets plus X damage. X equals the revealed card's block modifier. And enhance, sacrifice one foundation, draw two cards. Two very simple things, two things that have a lot of synergy given her symbols. And the other reason is she has a large health pool, so she's going to be a little bit more forgiving if you don't remember to hold the perfect block zones, right? The five-handers are typically the more forgiving characters because if you don't hold those specific block zones, you have a lot of health to deal with. So overall, I think she's a great starting character compared to somebody like Armin Arlert, Colossus's Power. This isn't saying you can't start with one of those kind of characters, but they might have a bit more of a learning curve than someone like Mikasa. So, we've decided our character. The next thing we have to pick is our symbol. This is important. It provides our basis ground for our character. Because sets before Attack on Titan Battle for Humanity did not use the attuned symbol system, our choice here is important regarding things from Yu Yu Hakusho, Dark Tournament, Jet Burn, Girl Power, any of those sets, right? So it's important we pick the right symbol. So if we look at the symbols typically have what's known as symbol identity. One of the big things for death is you benefit from sacrificing foundations, or you sacrifice your rival's foundations. The symbol identity of air is typically we're clearing our card pool and playing on very low progressive difficulty. So if we look back at Mikasa, she's sacrificing her foundations to draw cards, right? So for this, we're going to go with death. It's going to let us profit from that sacrificing and going to provide more benefit for what we're trying to do with Mikasa. Again, this isn't saying you can't build on air. I just believe that it's a little bit easier for new players and it provides a bit more benefit to Mikasa. So, moving on into our attacks. Attacks, we typically have what are known as starters, flow pieces, and bombs. Our bombs in this are going to be things like lethal rending, right? Being able to sacrifice up to 3 foundations to give something plus 2 damage for each one is really strong. And then also, short range shot can be considered a bomb. We can sacrifice foundations and bump its damage up, but it also counts as a starter, right? It's a 7 mid for 3, 7 mid for 4 with Mikasa's on-face sacrifice. So this is going to encourage our rival to block it, so then it makes room for the rest of our attacks. Things like Venom Fang Dagger and Leaping Slice are more flow cards. Venom Fang Dagger giving our next weapon attack a bunch of damage if it hits, and Leaping Slice letting us draw cards. And then Timely Counterattack and Mikasa's Fatal Cleave are just good interaction cards with our opponent. Timely Counterattack, we're typically going to have less foundations than our rival because we are a 5-hander. And we're sacrificing our stage, so it'll become a 3 low for 4 in our character. And then Mikasa's Fatal Cleave is going to encourage our rival to block our big damage attack, so we can then put another one through later on. Because if we manage to get that attack to land and have it deal damage to our rival, we're going to be able to destroy one of their foundations, and we can pick, right? So yeah, big things to note here are we have a 4 difficulty block mod, or a 4 block mod on our lethal rending for Mikasa's Enhance, so it's going to be plus 4 damage to our moves, and then everything else has a 2 to 3, potentially a 1, right? So yeah, we've got our starters in things like Leaping Slice, Short Range Shot. We've got our combo pieces in things like Venom Fang Dagger, Fatal Cleave, and Timely Counterattack because of the low difficulty, and we've got our bomb and lethal rending. So the next part, we have to talk about our foundations now, and these are going to be the easy additions to our deck is what we're going to do first. These are exactly what they look like. They're the easy additions because they are very intrinsically linked with our gameplay idea. Our focus is sacrificing our own foundations and weapon cards, right? Playing weapon attacks and revealing those. So we have a couple of different things. Enormous Axe and Questioning Yourself both recur themselves when they're sacrificed. Enormous Axe building the top card of the deck face down, and Questioning Yourself adding it to our hand so then we can reveal it with Mikasa for damage. Other foundations benefit from these sacrifices on other foundations. Things like Pushing the Limits lets us draw even more cards when we use Mikasa, so we can really dig for another attack, or we can dig for that better block mod when we need it. talking about block mods, we have Descendant of Hizuru, one of our defensive cards. It lets us turn those high block mods on things like Lethal Rending to a 0 block mod by committing it. So it makes it a lot easier for us to block and we can live longer. And then I'm With You and Aerial Arrival are both boosting our attacks even more. Aerial Arrival giving us that much wanted speed that our character kind of doesn't have on face. And I'm With You being extra damage, right? Sometimes we'll be a couple damage short, or we might not have a 4 block mod in our hand. We might have the 2. So then this becomes a 4 damage bomb onto our attack, right? Now, we have these offensive pieces, these easy adds, and Mikasa's already pretty offensive on her face. So the next big thing we need to talk about is defense. Defense is so important in our game. You want to make sure you live long enough to be able to attack your rival and stay alive in the fight. So we have 3 defensive cards that are solely there for their defensive purpose. You might have noticed things like I'm With You and Aerial Arrival had a second ability where they said -2 damage on I'm With You, and Aerial Arrival said -2 speed. These are dual purpose cards, and they're great because they serve these multiple functions within our deck, but we still want dedicated defense so we can use those cards on the offense without feeling bad about it. Soul Motivation, it's going to give us -4 speed if we have fewer foundations than our rival, and if we don't, we still have -2 speed. It's a really great card for what we're trying to do and how we sacrifice our foundations, and we're a 5-hander, so we're not going to build as big of a board as our rival who's a 6-hander or a 7-hander. The next one is Moment of Normalcy. It's what's known as a reset in our game. It's going to set the printed speed or damage of an attack back to the printed value whenever we choose to commit it. So characters like Colossus Titan Finale being able to give our an attack +5 damage can be really scary, but with this, we can alleviate some of that fear and not have to worry so much about managing to block it. The last one I have here is Shrewd Observations. It's going to say, after we sacrifice 1 or more foundations, our attack's going to get -1 speed. This can stack. So if we have 3 Shrewd Observations on our board, we're saying -3 speed every time we sacrifice a foundation. And that can be absolutely critical depending on what our current board state looks like and what our opponent's board state looks like. So yeah, we want to have these defensive pieces. We want to make sure they're there for when our rival starts trying to attack us because we are a 5-hander. So we're a little bit slower, but we're not overly slow. This does lead us into the last part of deck design though, which is our utility cards. I've highlighted a couple here that I think are really good for Mikasa personally while trying to keep this deck on a budget. The first one is Dedicate Your Heart. This is kind of leaning into that flow aspect that we had with our attacks. We can sacrifice a foundation to ready a foundation that's not been ready this combat phase. This means that we can turn essentially that 1 foundation into 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and so on and so forth. It's also got what's known as Deadlock Enhance, which is when our rival builds to 11 or more foundations, we can flip this to clear 2 cards from our card pool, meaning we don't have to play on super high progressive difficulty as we go. The other ones are, we also have 2 more draw cards, right? Mikasa sacrifices a foundation, which can get kind of costly as the game goes on, especially early on. So Latent Skill and Settling Old Debts deal with that big cost by letting us just flip and either discarding 2 cards in the case of Latent Skill to draw 2 cards, or me and our rival, we have to have each 6 foundations to be able to draw a card, right? With Settling Old Debts. Those are the really important things to note. Your character can do it, but it's kind of costly for our character to do it. So we want to have a backup way, just in case we need our stage to block or play more attacks or anything like that. Another one is Abrupt Loss. This gives us a little bit extra damage. Like I was talking about with I'm With You, sometimes we won't have that perfect block mod that we want to reveal with Mikasa. So Abrupt Loss is going to say we get +3 damage so long as we've sacrificed a foundation, which we're going to be doing anyway. It's going to help us cut down the Titan Forces and be able to deal with them easier. Our last little utility piece is Unbreakable. It's keeping our rival from getting rid of our foundations with new cards like Unyielding Destruction with its response, and it lets us commit it and destroy a foundation to essentially act like we are completely blocking. Mikasa can struggle sometimes with blocking because she is a 5-hand size character. So if we block with a high block into their mid attack, this keeps us from taking that half damage, which is really important. Now, overall, is this deck perfect? No. Nothing in this game is perfect, and that's what makes it so special. Every deck is different, and perfection's very rarely achieved within our game. Sometimes there might be more optimal things, but perfection is very rarely something that comes up. But what this deck does do is it gives you a good base. You can see that we have a good amount of 1 diffs, we have a good amount of what is known as spam or 0s and 1s, right? We have a good amount of 2s and 3s, which are going to be our very impactful cards. And then we have a good mix of 4 difficulty and 5 difficulty attack with a 3 difficulty sprinkled in there for the utility it brings. This is just here to make a blueprint for new players. I want you to be able to take this and look at it and kind of study it and see the ratios, things like that, the block zones. They are all very balanced within this deck. So I've gone ahead and left a screenshot of the deck up here and a UVS Ultra link down below in the description for you to access, whether that be to build it, you want to check out those ratios, anything like that. Feel free to use that as your own resource. It will stay up for the entirety of the time I continue to play this game, and probably long after if I ever do quit, which is very unlikely. Remember to like, subscribe, and let me know what you think about this list in the comments. Did you think it was a good list, or do you think I needed to improve some things on it for new players? And if you have any other things you want covered in these basic training videos, your input in the comments is always super appreciated because it lets me know what new players want to see. But thank you everyone, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.